Hey there, Pod Pals. Do you feel like you could use a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or with converting your podcast listeners into becoming your best clients? I want you to head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and watch the 4-minute video that talks about who I help and exactly how I can help them out. Next, I want you to click on the Discovery Call button to set up a free podcast profit potential discovery call where we can talk about working together to help you reach your podcasting and online business goals. Head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for your free podcast profit potential discovery call. What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's the show where I teach podcasters how to love your podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. If you're an online coach, consultant, or service provider, and you're looking to learn how to leverage your podcast to build your online business and get more clients, you're in the right spot. We're doing a podcast audit episode with my pod pal, Lori, from the Midlife By Design podcast. Lori, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'm so pumped to be here.
Well, I'm excited to connect with you. I always love connecting with listeners that have listened to the show and they decide to come on for a podcast audit. So that's always a great situation. So you've heard me do this before. I've got the magic question that I love to ask at the beginning, the 6-month question. So let's say I dispense a golden nugget of podcasting wisdom today. And 6 months from today, we're following up. Hey, Lori, how's everything going? And it's gone extremely well. Define what extremely well over the next 6 months might look like for you.
I love this question. And for me, I would say that I've been able to reach the midlife women that I'm looking to serve, to give them a ton of value and help them through, their struggles, and also start working with them, having more clients come in and be able to work with me on the longer term.
Okay. So we're talking ideal listeners finding you and starting to convert some of those ideal listeners into ideal fit clients. That sound about
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What do you feel like is your biggest roadblock to having that happen right now?
Uh, I feel like it's a numbers game, honestly. I think the more people who are listening and able to understand what it is that I offer and what I talk about, eventually there will be people who the thing that I love about the pod is it builds that relationship, right? And people can really get a sense of who you are and how you work from this body of work that you're creating, this podcast. So yeah, I feel like it's kind of a numbers game, and my numbers right now for downloads and people finding me are pretty small. I call it a baby pod.
Well, and that's normal. That's normal. I mean, most podcasters aren't just crushing it on downloads. So let's talk about that. So when we look at like client acquisition and things like that, I call it a revenue roadblock. Like, where is your revenue roadblock? Is it in leads? Is it in the funnel, or is it in uh, sales and solutions? So with you, it seems like it's leads. We just need more people in that funnel to listen to your show, fall in love with you as the person they want to work with, and then decide to hire you. So um, when somebody does hire you, what types of solutions are you providing? So obviously work with somebody in midlife, but what are you coaching them through? What are you helping them achieve?
Yeah. Uh, it's mostly life situations that we're dealing with. Midlife for women, they're going through perimenopause and or menopause. That is a huge shift with how your body functions. And a lot of women kind of feel like they're losing it, and so I help them through understanding that from an energetic perspective. So I work with something called human design to help them understand, how do they actually energetically show up, and how can they lean on their strengths to get them through this, actually not even get them through, but actually use this phase of life more as a time to redefine themselves versus feeling like, they're old, washed up, like no longer valuable.
Okay. You just dished out some of my favorite keywords or keyword like topics. So this is a great start. Okay. So I think when it comes to growing an ideal fit audience, I always look at the big three first. I look at the name of the show. I look at what you got in your podcast host description, and I look at episode titles. Because those are the things, if people put midlife mental health, I want your show to pop up. If they put midlife wellness strategies, I want your show to pop up. Things like that. I'm like, okay, this is your ideal listener, just waiting to find someone like you that they're going to really connect with your content. So keywords that human design is a searchable term. You've already kind of got design in the name of your show, so maybe we use that, maybe we don't. But I do like mental health, mindfulness, health, wellness. Like these are some of the areas that you provide solutions on. And these are all really, really good search terms. If you went into like business or weight loss, like any solution that you're helping them achieve in midlife, I would consider those keywords because somebody might search mental health on Apple Podcasts and they are in midlife, but they aren't connecting the dots in that way. But they see, oh, Midlife by Design, conversations on health, wellness, and mental health. That's me. I'm in midlife, and so they'll kind of reverse engineers the connection that we're looking for. They're searching something else, but then they realize I am in midlife. That's an identifying term and a keyword. So that's great. Like, wow, I was just looking for a wellness show, but Lori's got a wellness show and discusses mental health and human design. And it's for people in midlife. I'm in midlife. This is great. I identify as somebody in midlife. So sometimes that situation happens. And so leveraging keywords. Do you have a title extension on your show right now, or is it just listed as Midlife by Design and that's it?
No. So thanks to you listening to your pod audits, I did go in and add one recently. And I just updated the cover art. And so it's exploring menopause, wellness, and purpose through human design and practical magic.
Yes. Okay. So we got 3 keywords in there for sure. And you got some identifying terms. Yes. And that's listed on the title of your show. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So that's important. So yes. Perfect. Great. Because really the keywords, let's say they search menopause, like that's a highly searched term that you want to show up for. And they go, oh my gosh, it's midlife. Like this whole concoction of words that they see there, it's all for them. When their finger is hovering over 10 different images on Apple Podcasts, when they searched menopause, then, they're going to gravitate towards the one that they most identify with. And if they see all these identifying terms on the art, especially, and in the name, you're going to get a pretty decent shot at them clicking on your art right there. So that's good. Well done. Now, I want those same keywords lumped into your podcast host description as well. That's going to be important, and get all of them in there. And even think about like some Google style questions. So you've got the paragraph with all the keywords, and then I like to transition into if you find yourself asking questions such as the following, then this podcast is for you. And then go into Google and just start typing some questions and then see what other questions they suggest, and just use all those questions and put them in your podcast host description. So it's like midlife some sort of strategies for women in menopause, or wellness tips for people in midlife, or something like that, and just see what other things are suggested by Google. Take all of those and put them in there in that same verbiage, and that's going to help with pulling your show up on Google when people search those things. And then look for those keywords on all your podcast episodes as well. Like definitely with each episode, one of the biggest points of correction that I try to make with podcasters, we are all creative. We create creative content. We hit that record button. Like right now, you and I are being creative and creating content. But when it comes to naming this thing, I can put whatever as a rough draft as the title, but before I upload it and make it official, I have to look at it and go, are there any keywords, searchable keywords in the title of this episode? And if not, I got to get one in there. So it's easy for me because I've done so many of these. I'm like, we're talking about podcast growth, so I can put podcast growth, great keyword,
Right.
so that's probably going to be in the name of podcast growth tips for blah, blah, blah. And
Yep.
So you have to think about like, all right, the word midlife, the word human design, wellness, mindfulness,
Okay.
mental health, great keywords. Let's get all of those. If you're talking about those are episode titles. That's podcast host description material. And let that title extension cook for about 90 days.
Okay.
And here's kind of like a little pullback of the curtain Wizard of Oz situation here. I change my title extension about every 90 days. I'll tweak it a little bit and I don't tell anybody and nobody ever notices. I'll just put some new stuff in there and be like, let's see how this performs. Okay, let's do this. Let's see
Yeah.
how I show up. Because I'll just go into Apple Podcasts and Spotify and just start searching random things. And I'm like, what pulls up? That's interesting. Let's add that to my title extension for the next 90 days. Let's see how it does. Let's see if I see anything different. It's like fishing in different ponds every 90 days.
Yeah.
And you don't have to even change your art. Like, I feel like the art, I mean, you could, if it's just kind of like verbiage at the bottom, you could do that. And it's not a big deal. I wouldn't like totally rebrand, change it. It would just be like a word for word swap. So it looks similar visually.
Yeah.
So those are some different scenarios as far as like organic discoverability. So any questions on what we discussed there so far, Lori?
No, that's great. I like the idea of experimenting with it and just, always looking at it as an experiment to see what works and then trying something new to, shake it up and see if it works better.
Heck yeah. So with your episode content, what are we putting out there? Are we doing solo episodes, interviews, any coaching style episodes? What do we got?
So I have a mix right now of solo episodes and interviews. And I've been trying to, since I found you, I've been trying to do more solo episodes to get that 2/3 balance.
Good.
So I'm working on that. And so that means I also have a bit of a backlog of interviews that I've already done, which isn't a bad thing. And I haven't done any coaching style episodes yet. Really, some of my interviews could probably be, I could probably position them as that because they've definitely, while asking people the questions that I have for them, I'm focused on their human design. I have their chart with me and I'm picking out the different pieces and explaining what it all, has to do with what they're going through. So I think I could probably position those, but I haven't done like an intentional, I guess, coaching style episode.
Okay. So let's talk about content strategies a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I'll suggest, because I was in this exact situation once with the backlog of interviews, don't feel pressure to keep the same cadence just to get through those.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to, you can switch to 2/3 content right now. And then it's just going to take longer to get all those interviews out.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, don't feel like beholden to them. Like, I told them it would be 6 weeks and whatever. Like, you can't send an email like, hey, I just switched up my content strategy a little bit. I'm releasing fewer interviews, which is good for you as the guest because you're going to stand out even more because I'm not doing as many interviews. It's going to really stand out, but it's going to take a little bit longer to get it out. I project your episode to be live, whenever. Just kind of give them a heads up. So that way you've done your duty as a podcast host. So that way you can switch that 2/3 content sooner than later. I think that's a great move. I love the idea for you of case studies because human design, even though it's like growing in popularity, I feel like it's still not well understood, to the level that we would all like it to be understood. Like, I'm still kind of learning about it. And I've got some clients that are doing it and they've definitely piqued my interest. So, my wife is all about it, like all this stuff. So I feel like in a space like that isn't super, super, super well known and understood, the way that it should be understood, case studies are a great opportunity. You grab a client that you've worked with and talk
Mhm.
about how it's helped them understanding their human design and the
Mm,
journey that you're able to work through. So,
okay.
yes, I want you doing coaching style episodes with somebody that listens to the show and comes on, and you kind of do that appetizer to how human design applied to their midlife is going to help them, like what we're doing here today.
Mhm.
But I think in your niche specifically, doing
Mhm.
case studies and unpacking the success story could be even more powerful, because now people are like, oh, I get it. Because
Yeah.
maybe they have that same pain point and they're like, wow, human design helped that person understand what they're dealing with and overcome it. I need to go on that same journey. So I would consider that as well. And it kind of serves as a testimonial as well. Like, I would wholeheartedly endorse at the end going, hey, what was your favorite part about working together? I'm going to shamelessly promote, uh, you know, our ability to work together, and,
Yeah.
brag about me a little bit or something, like
Yeah.
that's my personality. Um, but like, you can bake in a testimonial into that. And like, the whole thing kind of is a testimonial, but it's a functional testimonial, because you're like, this is the pain point you came to me for. Here's the strategy that we utilized to get through to the other side. Here's the result that was achieved. Here's the next goal we're going after. And here's, and you're at the center of it as the leader. So how does that sound to you?
Yeah, I love that idea. I think it makes a ton of sense because, like you said, most people, my experience has been that a lot of people don't know what human design is, don't really understand it. And I think that has been the block for a long time for me, is understanding how to talk to people about it without necessarily using the terminology, and getting like the deer in headlights, like, oh my God, so much information. So I think I've figured that part out, but I love the idea of the case studies. And I think it would be super helpful to hear clients talking about it, right? And using their terminology as just another way to kind of broaden the scope of how we talk about it. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah. And talk about easy and fun content. Like,
Yeah.
you're basically letting somebody kind of brag about their results. They're kind of bragging on you at the same time. People are learning. They're being inspired by listening to it. That relatability factor is there. I really like it. And like, honestly, I want to compliment you on using the word midlife as the first word in the name of your show. Because what you just said to
Hmm.
me just hit me between the eyes about like the confusion around the term human design. I'm like, your ideal client, they may not be out there searching, and they honestly, they're probably not searching for human design. They don't realize that's the solution yet.
Right.
So midlife is kind of the Trojan horse content box that we're putting this in.
Yeah.
I love that. I had a similar situation with my weight loss podcast. Like, everybody they just wanted to lose weight, and that was the thing. Like, but
Yeah.
I want to talk about mindset. And I'm like,
Hmm.
the most important thing we got to work on is between our ears. And I knew that because I'd been on that
Right.
journey. I helped a lot of people on that journey, but I had to get over that. It couldn't be the mindset health podcast. Like, people did not care, because there's so many
Right.
people that are way better at marketing than me at going, get abs in 5 weeks, lose weight. So I had to lead with weight loss. That was my Trojan horse. And then I get them into the mix, and I'm talking mindset. And people are like, this is exactly what I needed to hear. I'm like, yes, I had to trick
Right.
you there to get you here. But now that you're here, let's talk for real. Um, so it's kind of like
Yeah.
that. Like, I really like leading with midlife and kind of these conversations on mental health, conversations on wellness, mindset, all this. But the the real trick that's going to get them to where they want to be is your coaching on human design. So I really like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And women in midlife, my experience has been it's this phase of life not only where they're experiencing changes in their body, but that is bringing up tons of questions, right? They're just wondering like what am I doing right now? Why am I actually in this place, looking back at their life and thinking, how did I get here? So that is a lot of, mindset, and also coming back to actually who you are versus what everybody else has been expecting of you. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I feel like I need to introduce you to my wife because she's like got all the books and she's like totally nerding out on everything human design right now.
Oh, love it. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so we'll get her plugged into the show. Um, so no, I like where we're going with this. So I feel like with the keyword strategy, we're gonna have more ideal listeners going there. Um, growth wise, I think another thing that a lot of podcasters are not paying enough attention to is growing their email list. So where are we at there? Do we have a lead magnet? Are we putting effort into that? Do we have a newsletter? What does that look like right now?
Yeah, so I do write regularly to my list. I would say I have a pretty small pretty small list right now, and I have a lead magnet, but I'm in the process of revamping it more to be tailored to midlife women. So right now it's pretty human design focused. It's people can go to my website and get their chart, and then they can get a couple of downloads that will basically explain what it means. A mini guide to human design and some journal prompts and whatnot. But I'm working on revamping that right now to be more tailored to what midlife women are going through, and then how human design can help them. So in the
Okay.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad that you're doing something because I see so many podcasters like, I don't have time to build my email list.
Mhm.
And the fact that you're emailing, like, I think when I hear somebody like yourself go, I've got a small-ish list, but I still am in communication with them on a consistent basis, you got my respect because that's how I started. I remember I've sent a weekly email every single week for, I want to say we're going on like 6 years now. And I
Mhm.
started with 7 people on my list, but I treated it as if it was thousands of people. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, everybody, how's it all going out there? Like I'm talking to this giant crowd of 7 people. And I'm pretty sure I just took 7 podcasters that I knew and threw them on the list. Like it wasn't even like an official
Love
thing. Nobody opted in. They're just on my list. So
it. Love it.
I've got a lot of respect that you're approaching it with that mindset. I think it's smart again to, I don't like the term Trojan horse, but that's exactly what it is. It's like we gotta that lead magnet, we gotta Trojan horse the midlife thing again to
Mhm.
get them in. And so like a midlife momentum scorecard, a midlife momentum mini
Mhm.
reset course, or anything that's
Yeah.
just like I feel like a lot of people in midlife are looking. I think the word momentum or reset or uh, I like the word momentum a lot because I feel like a lot of people are looking to first figure out what the heck is going on. Why is my body changing like this? Why is, all the things that happen midlife. And then with the quick win off of a lead magnet like that can deliver just a clear perspective on what your next step should be. And if you
Mhm.
can deliver that in a scorecard, a mini course, a downloadable checklist, anything,
Yep.
I think that's going to be a winner. And you, again, package it up in the midlife container. And a part of that is going to be some suggestions on human design. And that totally makes sense
Yeah.
because if they really lock in with that, they're ideal fit client for you. And that's what that next step's all about. So I think that's great. I honestly, if I were you, I would try to make it as specific as possible because then I would try to network with other people in the human design space, specifically like the human design podcasting space, and
Mhm.
look for like, hey, let's do a podcast interview swap or let's do a newsletter promo swap and go,
Mhm.
hey, like when I do, I'm big on these right now. I'm building this Rolodex of people I'm going to be doing email swaps with where I'll go, hey, we're in a complimentary niche. I would
Yeah.
love for you to like the basic format is I'm going to do a swap with somebody. I'm going to go, hey, I would like to put 2 links in my little advertisement in your newsletter. One would be a link to a specific episode of my show, and one would be to a downloadable lead magnet to get people to opt into my list. And you get to do the same thing on my newsletter as like a
Mm.
little blurb, like a 2-link special trade out. So you doing that, like if you do have somebody on, or all these people that you have interviewed, if they have an email list, I would be following up with them. Let's start there. All the people you've already got and go, hey, what's your email list situation look like right now? Are you emailing people regularly? Do you have a newsletter? Would you be interested in doing a email list promo swap? Here's the format. Here's what I'm looking at achieving. here's who's on my list, here's my open rate, blah, blah, blah. And like, let's say, the question that I know you're thinking that I would naturally be thinking as well would be like, what if they have 5,000 people on their list and I've got 24? Like, what do we do then? And like in that situation, I'm gonna be like, listen, I'll just say what it is. I'm not gonna lie or anything like that. I'm not a fake it till you make it kind of a guy. I'll be like, listen, I know you had a much larger list than me. I'd be totally okay with like I'll do 3 promos to year 1 or whatever. Like I understand the situation. I'll do, or maybe we add in, let's go live on my Instagram where I've got a few more people and we can get you in front. But one of the wins is they came on your show, like that's a value add already. So that's kind of packaged in. When you're looking at like trade outs like that, you're coming on my show, I'm exposing you to that audience. Maybe we do an Instagram live together, something like that. I'm putting all this promo material out. I'd love to do a little email promo swap. Let's see what that looks like. And in some scenarios, I'll pay people. I'll be like, listen, I want to get in front of your 10,000 people. What would it cost me to run an ad inside your newsletter? And maybe it's $500 or whatever. Like I'll evaluate, okay, is this worth it or not? Then if I'm going to pay somebody, I'm going to really get eyeballs on what is your actual list size? What is your actual open rate? Like I want to see the screen, not a screenshot. Yeah. I want to look at it. So, in those situations, I feel like you could do really well, but the lead magnet needs to be not the exact same as every other lead magnet in the human design space. So make it really specific to females, focused on mental health or maybe you network with other people with midlife podcasts. That's probably what I would do. That makes much more sense. Now I'm backpedaling. Let's back this train up. I think you should be networking with people in the midlife space, and your lead magnet is midlife based in human design. And that way, when you do that, maybe theirs is about business or something like that, or midlife stories in general or something like that. Now that makes sense more than, because the human design person / coach may be like, it's kind of the same thing that I do. I don't really feel comfortable with that. But going into the bigger niche and you kind of being the human design expert within that makes more sense. So how do we feel about that lead magnet cross promo situation?
Yeah, I love that idea. I feel like it's a fresh way to borrow other people's audiences. I've done a few pod swaps and I've done a few interviews on other people's pods, but I love the idea of email swap because that's truly the gold, right? Email gold standard, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, my open rates are really good. I think, as far as the industry standard goes, and I have, I think, like 300 something. So
that's great.
It's a group, so I think that's a great idea. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And 300 is excellent. And I know there's a lot of listeners out there that would just kill to have 300 people on their email list right now. So, kudos to you. And the fact that you've got a really good open rate, that shows me that you took it seriously and the way that you're communicating from the start. I feel like, I started with 7 people and I knew all their names. And as I put people on the list, a lot of them are like what we're doing here. It's like one-on-one, small group. They saw me speak on stage. Like we've interacted a lot. So yeah, I heard something I read something on Threads the other day that I really liked, where a gentleman named Mike Romaine was talking about, if you've established expert positioning, people don't open your email because of the title. They open because of who sent it.
Yeah.
And like people see that I sent something, they'll open it, 70% of the time. Sometimes the spam box gets us and they don't even get a chance to see it, which we hate that. But it seems like you're building this in the right way. So I applaud that. And yeah, so
great.
I think from a growth perspective, look at collaboration. If you have somebody on your show as a guest, I would love for them to be a podcaster in the midlife space. There's a lot of those people to network with and look for a guest opportunity back on their show. Really look at the newsletter swaps, the podcast promo swaps, things like that. I think that you could, you put in a year and set goals around this and go, all right, my goal is to be on 12 midlife podcasts this year, average one a month. That's very achievable. And maybe it's more than that. Maybe you want to go after 20 in a year or something like that. Set an email list growth goal. Like, I want to get to 500 people on my list by June of 2025, and start tracking those metrics. Like, those are important metrics that I want you to focus in on just as much as podcast downloads and everything else. Like, building that email list following, building obviously the podcast following. Those are equal metrics in my opinion. We got to keep track of both those things, because as those go up, like we said at the beginning, more leads in the funnel and more clients will come out of the funnel, out of the back end. So Sound cool?
For sure. Sounds fantastic.
All right. Lots of ideas dispensed here today. I feel good about them. Let's get people connected to you. Maybe they want to come on and do a coaching style episode. Maybe they know somebody, or they are somebody that needs to use your services. So how do people get connected to you with your website, social media, all the good stuff?
Yeah. So my website is lorilisai.com, LORILISAI.com. And you can find all of my offerings there and freebies. And then I'm on Instagram, I'm on Threads, Facebook, I'm on all the socials at Lori Lisai. So same, everything's the same. And you can catch my pod on Apple and or, all the audio places that you listen, and then also on YouTube.
All right. Super cool. Everybody go out and support Lori and her podcast and all of her business adventures. If you all are like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do a podcast audit with my buddy Adam, you can. All you have to do is go to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and click on that freebie button and get signed up. Get on my calendar. I'm now booking into the first quarter of 2025. Would love to have you on the show. And you can be just like my pod pal, Lori, and get some one-on-one coaching live here on Podcasting Business School. So for everybody listening, thank you so much. I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you next time. If you need a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or monetization strategy, head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for a free podcast profit potential discovery call. During this free 20-minute discovery call session, I'm going to analyze your podcasting brand and tell you where I think you're missing on an opportunity for profits. Next, I'm going to tell you exactly what I suggest that you do as your next step. If I've got an offer that would help you accelerate the process, we can discuss working together as well. So head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and click on the Discovery Call button to schedule your free Podcast Profit Potential Discovery Call.